Hi, it is Xanet, and wow, God, there's so much going on. It's been such an intense week for everyone, especially those of us in Northern California. I know we've all very grateful that we can breathe air, and it's just been disastrous seeing what's happened to so many friends. But I am here today for a different reason. I have an announcement, and it's hard for me to actually make this announcement, but I'm going to make it anyway because I think there's information that you all need to know. And in some ways, it's almost connected to all of the Me Too's that are going around the internet. So today, Monday, October, whatever, I think it's the 16th, I launched, or we're in the process of launching a book that I wrote called Living an Orgasmic Life, Heal Yourself and Awaken Your Pleasure. This book has been in the making for 3 or 4 years at this point, and it is, I like to describe it as this: it's a love note. It is really a love note to every woman, and honestly every man, though it's written from the point of view of a woman, to every woman who has struggled around her sexuality, who has felt sexually shut down, who has experienced trauma and abuse. It helps us not only heal, because there's healing balm within the pages, but there's also hope. There's a way forward. And the reason it's so hard, it's not like I just wrote a book, which a lot of people are doing right now. And I have so much, having just gone through the process, I have so much, I know how hard it is. So I'm there with you guys. But it's not that I just wrote a book, but I wrote a very vulnerable book around my own experiences of being sexually shut down, and starting from very early in my life as a child, and all the way through into very much into my adult life as well. And it was hard to write. There were passages that were really challenging for me to write, but also it was a very healing process for me to be able to understand better how I got disconnected from my body and my sexuality. And there's some vulnerable information about my marriage, which I really don't share with people except at a very high level. And I have some fear and concern about my ex-husband reading parts of this, although I clearly don't use names. And there's vulnerable information around some of the relationships I've had post-marriage as well. So it makes it really hard for me to be able to talk about it, and yet there's a lot of excitement in the book. I guess what I want to say is, when I think about the issue that's so prevalent right now and going around the internet about the Me Too of all of the women who have experienced sexual harassment and rape and assault by men, I think that this book absolutely addresses it. It was part of my story in a slightly different way. I'll tell you about it. I don't actually think I write about it in the book, but it was part of the reason I disconnected from my body and my sexuality. I was 10 or 11 years old, and I was maybe 10 and 11, maybe 12 years old. And I was walking to school one day. It was a beautiful spring morning, and I was developing, and actually as a young girl, my boobs were a lot larger than any other part of my body, so it felt very misplaced. But I didn't have a bra on or the proper bra on, because my mother was just really bad at that kind of stuff. And I was walking to school and minding my own business, and some men drove by in a truck and started harassing me and calling me big tits and all this other stuff. And I was just absolutely floored. It was like seared in my memory. When I do this exercise in my classes about experiencing shame, This is like one of the number one things that shows up for me, because all of a sudden I was this adorable, innocent young girl. All of a sudden I felt dirty and I felt disgusting and I was embarrassed about my breasts. And I was traumatized by that experience. And this is just a little experience. Like, there's so many women. I've had plenty of other experiences of men saying disgusting things to me or trying to, do something without consent. But this had such a huge impact on me because I had no way to be able to fight back or to even know that this is something that could actually happen to me. It was almost the shattering of my innocence as a girl, and the beginning of womanhood in some sort of perverse way. But it had a huge impact on me, and it made me hate my breasts. It made me hate my body. It actually made me change my life. Like, for the rest of that semester, I either made my mother drive me to school. I never told her why I had her drive me to school because I couldn't talk with her, or I took a completely different path. But I never felt the same about my body, and I never had the same trust as I did before that incident. And so seeing all of these Me Too's coming up is just really triggering for me as well. And it's part of the reason that I did disconnect from my body. I had significant body images as a young girl, as a child. Eventually I grew into my breasts at some level, but it took a long time, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. And it was like one of the first times that I began that absolute disconnect. So the book, Living an Orgasmic Life, chronicles some of my own journey around disconnecting from my body. There are plenty of other stories around it as well. But most importantly, it's really, this is why it's hard for me to talk about this. This book isn't about me, and it's not about my life. Yes, I've had an unusual and somewhat interesting life. I get that. And I know my journey is important to tell. Thank you, Jess. Jess, by the way, who just joined the call, was an amazing proofreader of my draft of my book. So while I do have an important story to tell, I know that this book has importance to so many other women, because I talk about not only my own pathway to healing, but others' pathways to healing, and have client studies from maybe about 30 or so different client case studies, so that you can actually see, oh, I'm sort of like this person, or our relationship is sort of like this, and look at what they were able to discover, and look at how they were able to move forward and heal. And so it is like with an amazing amount of humility that I am launching this book. And also I actually really need support. And it's so hard, if you guys know me, and many of you do, how hard it is for me, for Xanet, to be able to ask for help and support from others. As somebody who gives so much to other people, it's really hard for me to ask, but I really need it. I'm working with this awesome company who matches publishers with authors. And the way the process works is you've got to sell a certain number of copies. So when I get done with this video, because I've not figured out how to do it at the exact same time, I'm going to provide a link to my campaign. We're in the pre-launch, pre-sale order phase. The book is actually written, but we're waiting to see how many copies we can sell in a relatively short period of time, which will determine if a real publisher would be interested in picking it up, which is my deep desire and hope, not because I want fame. That's never been what it's been about for me, but because I know this message is so incredibly important for so many women to hear, and to hear it from somebody who went through it in their own authentic way and has come out the other side and can help heal them on their own healing journey. So I thank all of you in advance for listening to this, for sharing this Facebook Live post. and for helping to support my campaign. You will be hearing a bit from me on Facebook over the next couple of weeks, so I apologize in advance for that. But I am incredibly passionate about this project and about this book, and I am really, really appreciative in advance for your support. May you guys all have a really blissful day.